Hi.
Hi.
Your name
Doreen
is?
Legenzov, and I live in Amber Meadows, which is directly across from Fort Detrick on Possumtown Pike, and I'm aware that this is being recorded with my permission. And I have been living in Amber Meadows for almost 23 years this November, and I have 40 lesions now on my brain. I have other autoimmune problems that are associated, borderline diabetic, rheumatoid arthritis. I now just discovered I have a bone tumor in my foot, and I don't know where else because I've had a lot of bone issues. I've always felt that Detrick was responsible somehow, some way.
Why?
Because in 2000, through the years, I just started becoming a little sick, and it just seemed to coincide with things that were happening at Detrick that would come out, and then in 2000, I started to come down sick, mild symptoms. In 2001, I came down very sick. The clincher for me was in 2004, I have a neighbor that lives approximately 4 doors over from me, and she came down with basically the same thing I had in the spring of 2004. We both got sick at the same time. Similar situation, it was all neurological related, autoimmune, and I lost the feeling in my hands and feet and different spots on my legs, arms, and even the side of my face. She had the same problems, but she actually went blind in one eye temporarily for a period of time. And they still haven't really completely diagnosed what this is. She has lesions on her brain as well. I don't know how many. And we both got well at the same time. We both got better in the fall of 2004. We got sick at the same time, and we got better at the same time. And her and I were talking, and I had said that I thought it was odd, that she had been sick, and I was sick, and we had neighbors that had died. There was a neighbor that lived 2 doors over. Her boyfriend died of a brain tumor, and then she died of something with her pancreas.
When was this?
And she passed away, I think it was like in 2000, I want to say about 2002, somewhere around there. And I had another neighbor in the 90s that had died from colon cancer across the street from me. And I have another neighbor that's next to her that has cancer, that just came out with another bout of cancer. She had breast cancer. This woman that had the same symptoms as I do, or did at that time, she works for the Department of Health. And she has a lot of family and a lot of history in Frederick. Her father worked on Fort Detrick. And when we were talking about it recently, she said to me, I told my mom, when fightingforfrederick.org, the Kristen Renee Foundation, and I was asking her to get on the website and look at, sign up.
Yeah.
She said that her mother wasn't surprised because her father said that they were dumping, that he knew that they were dumping things even over by Amber Meadows. And that he told them, and she said, I don't remember. And she said, oh yes, he told you not to move over there. And because her sister had bought a home when they were first developing Amber Meadows, which was in the early 70s.
Okay.
And so she became paranoid. Her father said that there were things going on at Fort Detrick, and that they used to tell people that they'd come down with a bug and then isolate them in in housing over there. And then some of them would make it out, some of them didn't. And but anyway, she has a lot of history around Frederick, and she went to school with the boy whose father jumped out of the, committed suicide. He was a scientist at Fort Detrick.
Frank Olson.
Yes, Frank Olson.
She went to school with
his
sons. Okay.
And so she knew him, and she knew that story, and so forth. So she's alarmed now. She's extremely alarmed with because she really didn't pay attention, like most of us. We don't pay attention. There were stories back in the 90s that things were being mailed, you know, bacterias and viruses and so forth, that Detrick claimed that was inactive. Now, my concern is that after 9/11, that fort was supposed to be in a lockdown, and yet someone still managed to get anthrax off base. And we live in a close proximity. How many other things have escaped Fort Detrick? And in one manner or another, whether it's by human, you know, someone taking it off base and thinking nothing of it, or someone that, or just the accidents that happen, you know, on base, that it's contaminated even the air, and we're not aware of. And that's what I believe has happened to me and my neighbors. It could be the Agent Orange that was sprayed in the fields. It could be something that got out of there, that people, or some sort of biohazard accident, or just, I believe that they're responsible in some way. This is nothing that I have coincides with anything that's heredity. Both of my parents, yes, my parents had oral cancers, all right, from alcoholism. But neither one of them have any kind of autoimmune disease. None of my grandparents, none of my aunts, on either side. No one else is sick the way I've been sick. My parents, as with the difficulties that they've had, they've never had rheumatoid arthritis. My great grandparents that I know did not have rheumatoid arthritis or diabetes or any of the things that I seem to be coming down with. And now I'm afraid for my son. You know, my youngest, who's alive and is going into the PhD program at the University of Maryland, is concerned as well, because he's finding that he's having these, his eyes twitching, you know, rapid, and he's and other like smiled, and he's afraid that he's coming down with things that I'm coming down with, because he's been living here in Amber Meadows since he was a year old.
How old
and
is
he's
he now?
now going to be 24. He'll be 24, and so he's been living there basically all of his life. And so now he's concerned with, because these are things that are unknown. He believes as well that it's associated with that Detrick is, things have gone on and exposures with Detrick that his life could be, the quality of his life and his health could be tainted, so to speak. It won't be. It's not anything that he's done.
Are you on well water or are you on city water?
We're on city water.
You are. And what's your proximity to Fort Detrick?
We are directly across. Fort Detrick is here. There's a road, and then I'm directly across. So it's less than a mile from Fort Detrick. It would be like from here, where we're sitting now, going across the street.
It's really close.
It's very close. And that was the reason for the concern. I mean, you find out that you have scientists that are taking things off base. People, especially back in the 60s and 70s, they may not have realized. They thought that maybe incinerating this stuff was actually destroying it, and not understanding what the ramifications were, you know, spraying it and so forth. And we're much smarter now, you know, thank God, and we have the technology, and the research has been done to see that there's long-term ramifications from all of these pesticides and other things that we didn't think much of back in the 60s and 70s. and there are long-term health effects and actually killing people. You know, and it's sad, but I think that Fort Detrick needs to be accountable. They need to answer the questions. I'm very grateful for the Kristen Renee Foundation, because these are things that I've actually believed for the last 10 years or better, and didn't have the wherewithal to actually pull it together, and now it's being done, and I'm hoping that others will wake up. You know, most people sit back and they say, it's not me. It's not me. Well, I live over here. You know, I'm not on well water. I don't live across. Everyone should be involved in this and be concerned for their children. You know, for our children, we should be concerned. Even if it has no direct impact on you. And you're lucky. You know, and you're lucky by the grace of God. You're lucky. But your neighbors, you know, I know people that are telling me that their neighbors, you know, 5, 6, 7 neighbors around them are their animals. I've heard more stories. I approached someone at a 7-Eleven over on Possumtown Pike on Amber Drive and was trying to get people to be aware of the meetings and to participate. And this young girl approached me and she said, my father just died of cancer and he lives in Amber Meadows in the private homes behind my townhouse. And she said, our neighbors are dying of cancer. And she said, all our animals have died of some sort of like brain cancer or kidney cancer.
Not just random.
No. And my neighbor, who I said had the same symptoms as I did, she's had 4 animals, 3, 4 dogs in the last 10, 12 years, and they've all died of cancer. So this is something to be concerned with. This is not something that's like just random and, you know, you run across some poor individual that's, you know, come down ill and your heart goes out to them. This is happening in large scales. And what concerns me is that the health department, even though they're saying they're going to look into it, they're looking into it in the last meeting for the last so many years, 7 years, 5 years. Well, in the 90s, we've had, from the late 90s, from 2000, 2001, 2002, there was a tremendous turnover with the real estate. People have not been living here that long. And all the people that are now sick, deceased, or their story's not being, their situation is not being looked at. These were long-term residents of this area. And now in the last 5 years, we've had so many newcomers into the area that it's not the same. It's not going to be the same. I think it's going to be tainted. It's going to be tilted in a direction where they haven't come down with these diseases yet. Whereas the people that have are already either sold or moved away or passed away.
What do you suggest? Do you
I think that they should be looking at long term, at least prior to this big real estate. There are people that have come down. I know people. In fact, I gave you the name of a woman that is now living in Virginia, and she moved away in the early 2000s because of this housing boom. And her mother passed away of cancer. She's had cancer. And her father was the commander at Fort Detrick. And so... And
he's not alive. He's dead.
And he's deceased. He passed away. We don't know from what. But the thing is that she... You know, this is another woman that's now moved away. And yet she has a history here around Frederick. Her family lived in Clover Hill. And they had cancer. But they're no longer residents. And they're not going to be counted. You know, so you're going to get a lot of people that have just moved into the area that they're perfectly healthy. You know, because they haven't been exposed to it long term. You know, they haven't bathed in that well water. You know, or unfortunately fortunately come down with the diseases that these other people have already had, which didn't know, you know, in ignorance. They sold their homes, they moved away, They didn't realize that they were passing on a legacy of death. And that's what's frightening. That's what's frightening, because now you have families. My sister had asked me if I would sell my home, now that I had an idea of what was going on. And I said, no, the damage is done. It's already done. And how can I, in good conscience, sell my home to another young family like I was when we moved in, and knowing that there's a possibility that they could be, it would be giving them some sort of illness and hurt their children and their children's children. How far reaching, we don't know. And that's a responsibility. That's a responsibility that every homeowner that lives around Frederick has, to find out, to get answers, and to make sure that we're not leaving a legacy of disease and death to our children and our children's children. And again, I thank Randy and the Kristen Renee Foundation for bringing this to the forefront, through his efforts. And I understand that he lost his daughter. I, as a parent that lost a child, I know, and you're looking for answers, and you have to find meaning in that. There shouldn't be any reason, that your child should die for nothing, for some person's stupidity or ignorance, or, because they lived in the wrong area. You want someone, you want it to make an impact. You want it to have some sort of good come out of it. Mm-hmm. And I believe that that's what's happening. If we can get more and more people, more and more residents in an uproar, even if you don't live near Detrick, but to be outraged that this has happened. And if the accidents can happen like this, who's to say, God forbid, down the line, that another catastrophe couldn't happen? There are schools near Detrick, and that your children aren't being poisoned. That's my statement. We need to wake up, and we need to stand up and together with the Kristen Renee Foundation and make a statement and say it's not going to go on. It can't go on. Not for our children. That's, I'm asking for, what I think should happen is that our elected officials should become more involved. Roscoe Bartlett, who was elected by the citizens of Frederick, should be outraged to know that his constituents are dying, and ill, and start to take action, because we trusted them. These are people that have the power to actually get something done, to have the government take action and actually get to the bottom. Thank God for Mr. Cardin, Senator Cardin, for being involved, making a statement, and now others need to follow suit. We're in an election year, and some of the Frederick, the people, the citizens of Frederick need to know who's going to fight for them. Who's going to go to the powers that be, to the big government, and fight for them. We don't need someone else that's going to get some sort of perk by sitting back and allowing just, to collect a paycheck. We need someone that's going to fight for the citizens of this county. Mm-hmm. And so I'm asking them to understand that I have these lesions on my brain. I'm not sure why I have them, or if it's going to get any worse. If the doctors don't even know. They don't know exactly what caused them. They don't know what it is. It's basically still an unknown. And yet, how many more lesions do I need to get before somebody says, hey, wait, something's a little unusual about this. It's a little suspicious. What is it going to take for my brain to completely disintegrate? or me to become incapacitated, that or my neighbors, you know, how many more people need to die before the elected officials start standing up for us? They're the ones. That's the reason why we put them in position in the first place. That's why they're elected. And I stated at one of the last meeting that I'm a taxpayer, and I trusted the government of Frederick County to protect me in some way, to be aware, you know, and if there was something going on, to make sure that it was, you know, researched and exhausted, you know, and not find out, well, it's just Detrick, you know, well, you know, we asked them and yet got no answer, you know. They say they cleaned up something, and, you know, the elected officials stand back. They're afraid to touch it. They're afraid to go forward with this because Detrick happens to employ a lot of people, and and because of that, they're afraid. But at the same time, these workers are dying. They're going on base. These contractors and other people that worked on the base. I have a neighbor that worked at Fort Detrick who just died this past year of colon cancer. And he used to tell me, he said, Doreen, you know, there's some things going on there that you would not, you know. And I'd say, oh my God, aren't you? He said, I have to make a living. You know? So these are the things that we're asking. We're asking for, and I'm asking for my son, for myself, that, you know, the elected officials of Frederick become as outraged as some of their constituents, the way I feel that all of Frederick should be, because you should be afraid. This could be your legacy. This could be your children. And we need to stop it and make sure that it never ever happens again and that it's cleaned up. You know, otherwise, the only thing that we're going to be noted for, and the elected officials will be noted for, is, you know, stupidity and cowardice for ignoring a problem that has been brought to the attention. It's now out in the open. We need to get more out, and we need to make them accountable.